If you've been scrolling through endless rows of water chillers, reading specs that sound the same, and still feel that uneasy "what if I pick the wrong one" vibe, you're not alone. Most people in the laser engraving or CNC cutting world hit that wall when they realize a chiller isn't just another accessory, it can make or break the whole production line. I've spent the last few weeks watching a handful of shop setups, talking to a couple of small batch manufacturers, and even sitting in a co-working makerspace where they rotate a few different chillers on a weekly basis. The goal here is to cut through the hype and tell you exactly when the SNA industrial water chiller CW6000DN makes sense and when it's just extra weight on the bench. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the CW6000DN is marketed as a 14-liter, 3000 watt unit that uses a high-precision compression refrigeration cycle. In plain English, that means it can pull the temperature of a closed-loop water system down fast enough to keep a 300-watt laser tube from overheating during a long engraving run, while still being compact enough to sit on a standard shop floor without a dedicated enclosure. The real question is whether that performance translates into day-to-day reliability for the kind of work you do. Let's talk about the typical shop scenario where this chiller shines. Imagine you run a small laser engraving business that does custom signage for local breweries. Your orders often require continuous runs of 30 to 45 minutes, especially when you're laying down dense vector graphics on dark wood. Without a chiller, the laser's coolant pump has to work overtime, and the heat buildup can cause power fluctuations, leading to inconsistent cuts and, eventually, a tube that needs replacement far sooner than expected. Plugging the CW6000DN into that setup gives you a stable water temperature in the low 20s Celsius range, which keeps the laser tube operating within its sweet spot. In a real-world test at the makerspace, a user reported being able to run a 40-minute engraving marathon without the coolant temperature spiking past 28°C, something that would have forced a cool-down break with a lower-rated chiller. That stability is the primary strength of this unit. The compression refrigeration system is designed for high precision, meaning you get tighter temperature control compared to basic thermoelectric or ice-based solutions. The 14-liter tank size also provides enough thermal mass to smooth out short bursts of heat, which is something you'll notice when you switch from a thin engraving to a deep engraving on acrylic. The tank is fitted with a sturdy, brass-capped inlet and outlet, so you don't have to worry about leaks when you connect it to your existing water toter heat exchanger. In practice, the connections feel solid, and the stainless steel housing does a decent job of resisting the occasional splash of coolant that tends to happen when you're working fast. Now, where the CW6000DN shows its trade-offs is in power consumption and noise. At 3000 W, it draws a noticeable chunk of electricity, which translates to a humming sound that can be heard from across the shop. If you have a quiet, climate-controlled studio, that hum might become a distraction during long design sessions. It's not a deal-breaker for most industrial settings, but it's worth noting if you're sensitive to background noise. Another point is that the unit requires a dedicated 110V, 60 Hz line. In older workshop buildings where you might only have a few 20-amp circuits, you'll need to make sure you have the capacity to run it alongside your other equipment, or you'll end up tripping breakers mid-run. Who should consider buying this chiller? First, anyone running a medium-sized laser or water-cooled CNC router that operates for extended periods. If you're cutting-inch MDF in a continuous feed, you'll benefit from the temperature stability the CW6000DN offers. It also makes sense for hobbyists who have outgrown a small tabletop chiller but aren't ready to invest in a full-size industrial water system. The unit's footprint is modest enough to sit under a workbench, and the built-in pressure relief valve adds a layer of safety that many DIY chillers lack. On the flip side, you can safely skip this model if your workflow consists of short, intermittent cuts. Think occasional hobby projects or low-power diode lasers that don't generate much heat. In those cases, a smaller, lower wattage chiller or even a simple reservoir with a pump will keep you in the green without the extra electricity draw. Also, if your budget is tighter than $800, you might find a refurbished unit with similar specs that offers a better price-to-performance ratio, though you'll lose the brand new warranty and the peace of mind that comes with a fresh compressor. A practical weakness that showed up during the shop visits is the lack of an integrated temperature display. The CW6000DN relies on an external sensor that you have to mount on your water line, then read off a separate gauge. Some users appreciate the flexibility, but others find it an extra step compared to chillers that have a built-in digital readout. It's a small inconvenience, but if you're used to a single panel interface,